guys, my name is Dee Smith. I am the director and cinematographer for the film Kokomo City, which will be featured in the Panorama section.
It's kind of funny because it's like with that moment of the car going by, like being broken down but making it sound like it's a motherfucking Mustang or a Porsche. It's like, that's what we give. We're good at being broken down, but before people see us, we have a great way of making ourselves stand out. Having that loud roar. You know, it's like we gotta be the bitch in the room with the 28 inches. We gotta be the bitch with the biggest boobs, the biggest body, you know? And it's like, but meanwhile, whether you use materialistic things to cover it up or not, are you really at peace? You know, are you really at peace with yourself, knowing that the best of you is only seen when you're a survivalist? Something like for me that I've always had to think about is the best of you only when you're seen as a survivalist, because that man that's giving you the money, that man that's helping us pay our light bill, okay? But he don't gotta worry about that, because his Stacy, his Barbara Ann, oh, trust, she's laid up. That bitch don't gotta suck a dick, flip monkeys, tickle a prostate to get her light bill paid, okay?
Hi, welcome to the Teddy TV. My name is Zsombor Bobák, and this time we are talking about the film Kokomo City. Hi, welcome to the Teddy. Welcome to the Berlinale. Thank you so much for taking the time. Maybe let's just start. How did this project came to be? What was the initial idea behind it? What was the driving force behind it?
Well, the initial idea was to do, it was to do a documentary. And I wanted to do something that was a little bit more provocative and transparent. But I also wanted to make a film as well. So I wanted something that felt filmic and elevated, but the subjects came to me very early on. And I think that dichotomy between the style and them really kind of did something special.
Let's talk a bit about, like, how did you all meet? How did you find your protagonists for the film? And then, of course, I'm very curious about your experiences receiving, I assume, a message that, hey, would you like to be in the movie? What went through your mind in that moment?
I found most of them on Instagram, through Instagram, or it would lead to someone else. So my thought process was to go to all of the, popular trans girls pages and then run through the comments. And I wanted to find more tangible girls, and so some girls weren't into it, and it led me to the stars. Yeah, the girls. So mostly Instagram, but I think someone recommended me to you. Yeah. Thank you, Angelica. Someone recommended me personally too.
Yeah, and how did you feel? Like, what went through your mind when you get this message? Were you on board immediately?
I guess it was a very exciting thing, right? At that time, I think Dee was just starting out, like, and building the film. And so she came to us and said that she really wanted to tell a real story, a real Black trans experience story. Excuse me. And so I think for me, I had presented myself in a certain way, and so many people didn't get to know the real me. And so after years and years of what was, considered to be these successful moments or this success story, I still had to navigate, in a survivalistic way, such as doing sex work. And so for me, it was an opportunity to bear my truth unapologetically and to finally take away what felt like a sense of having to live this double life, right? So I'm presenting myself to the world one way, but I'm making my money another way, right? And at times it was simultaneously happening, right? Where I'm in the opportunity, but I'm leaving, going to the date. And so it was an opportunity to tell my story and to give representation too, because I think so many people who are Black and trans and have had opportunities in media, you know, we don't get to talk about what happens after the fact, right? Like when there isn't any more opportunities coming in. And so what do we go to? The default place, which is sex work, which is, you know, how do we sustain our life? And so, yeah, I just wanted the world to know, like, you can thrive, and in moments you will have to survive, but it doesn't take away from you and your story.
Yeah.
So I remember Dee was following me and started watching my stories and stuff, and I was really honored because I had followed her story on TV as publicly transitioning, and I thought that was really brave, so I admired her for that representation on the media. That way we had a positive influence that we can look up to, and how she had an attitude that she didn't care and she did what she wanted to do. And she got a lot of feedback. It didn't go over well, and I watched the whole drama because I love reality TV shows. So I already was familiar with her before she contacted me, so I was already a fan, put it that way. So then when she contacted me and she came with this idea and she told me that she was a fan, I'm like, well, oh my God, I'm a fan too. And when she told me about the project, I'm like, well, I would love to, because I love you and what you represent and how you were a role model for us in media before, and was a positive role model. And she didn't have to deal with the dark side of transitioning that we had to. So I was all for the project because it was a great chance of representation in mainstream media.
Yeah, I think this is very important that we are touching upon now with this question of representation and how trans lives and experiences are represented in the media. Can you tell us a bit about, more in depth, about what was really crucial for you, and this is a question for all of you, to kind of alter maybe a recently becoming more popular phenomenon of representing trans lives in a particular way? What was your take on this? How did you want it to change a certain popular way of representation?
Oh yeah, I mean, beyond a doubt, like I mentioned earlier, it was important to find girls that were tangible, maybe that are what we call stars. When you think stars, you think the superficial aspect of it, but star really means leaders or impactful beings, spirits that are created to influence people. And I was led to these women. And it was very important that I do a film that represented what I truly know, which is trans women love to laugh. We like to have fun. We even laugh at ourselves. Even at the most dangerous, crucial moments, we find not joy, we just find a way to cope. And sometimes that is humor. Sometimes that is just being honest. But we don't do that in person, in public, because we're kind of veered not to do that, because either it makes people uncomfortable or people just can't relate. And it dehumanizes us as trans women, which is the whole point of doing the film, right? And we want to be human, but all of these facades and fortresses that are built around us don't allow us to flourish or to thrive as humans. So, yeah.
I think it was special that she gave us a platform to be ourselves, and like Daniela said, to tell our story and our struggle, and put a person to an entity or a star or a celebrity. You know, people only knew one face of us, and that's what we portray on social media. But behind social media, we are people, and we have emotions, and we have to do what we have to do to make our ends meet and keep a roof over our head, and be able to occupy these spaces that people are admiring us for occupying. So I think that was a great way for us to, myself included, because I was a very private person, and I did what I had to do, never with shame, but I never really broadcasted how I made my ends meet. You know, it was like a truth that wasn't said, and it was great to like finally come out of that shell and come out of the darkness and be an advocate for other people, and that they can see someone that they can admire and look up to, and know that these are the cards that we were dealt with, and we had to do what we had to do with the cards that we were dealt with in the society that we live in.
I think for me, one of the interesting things is that, so I have put a sense of like my story out there before, and it mostly had to do with how I navigated life as a homeless trans youth. And so it, to me, wasn't a shock that, you know, if someone heard that, like, or found out that I was doing sex work. I think it was, you know, at some point, right, like because of society, you're deemed successful, right? Because I had done a number of TED Talks, I had been seen in certain spaces. And I think one of the things for me, especially with those group of women who I came out with, and those were at that time, the Laverne Cox, the Janet Mocks, and these people who, while they were helping me find a sense of agency, they were on their own path, right, to becoming stars. And so for me, it felt like I had to keep fighting, right? Because I wasn't this hot commodity that was so marketable. I was just another subject, right? And so I had to find a way to balance that. And, you know, for me, it was like, okay, you want to keep pushing forward in a sense. And the only way to do that is by staying in these spaces. And so now what's the real balance here? It's okay, make enough money so that way they don't know that you're not deserving, because for a lot of these spaces is equated to how much money you have, not what you offer as a person, not the work that you're doing for the community. And so I've spent several years, you know, being that person on the ground doing community work, to being on public platforms telling my own story in hope, right, to inspire, in hope to start conversation. But the only conversation I wasn't having was about my reality. And so, you know, I was investing more into the fantasy than actually, you know, having conversation about my reality. And so, you know, here it is that through telling my story, it took me to many beautiful places in the world. But being a Black trans woman and going back into that reality meant that I had to survive. And so to be able to have this opportunity to remind every young trans person, every older trans person who has been in a position to have thrived, but now you find yourself back in the position, you know, surviving. I want them to know that it is okay, that you are human. You are no more or less deserving than an opportunity to feel seen, to be loved, because so many of us in this community have told us that if you fall off, you are no longer welcomed. And so now what I'm letting them know is I never fell off, I just stayed in my truth. And my truth was, when you stopped calling, I had to start picking up calls, right? And those calls look so different. Mine was to survive, while yours was just to ignore and thrive. And so I did what I had to do, and I'm very proud of that, because without survival sex work, I wouldn't even be here today. And so I'm not gonna walk away anymore with shame and I'm gonna be very candid, if a bitch ain't gonna pay my rent, keep my hair and nails done, and if you're gonna send me to my knees for it, then you can't shame me for it.
That's right. Wow.
That part.
My God.
Exactly. Let's talk a bit about the production, the whole process of what you had to go through to realize this film. As I heard, it was a complicated road, and it was a bumpy road. Can you tell us a bit about it all?
Sure.
Till you managed?
Sure. Well, I come from a musical background, not film. Creative background, and so producing music for well over 15 years and making a living. Supporting myself, I've gotten used to a certain way of living. And when that was taken from me after coming out as transgender, I became homeless and stayed with friends for years and slept on couches and floors, you know, Grammy plaques in the corner. And, you know, one day, thank God, I come up with this idea to do the documentary, and I asked a friend to purchase a camera and lens, and I just started to, I mean, of course, I went to a few directors and asked them if they could help me or direct it for me. This is before I had the idea to buy the camera myself, but everyone told me no. So here I am with this idea that I think is great, and I have no money. So mentally, I'm saying to myself, I'm not worth their time when I was once before, you know, when I was thriving as a music producer. So here I am, literally rock bottom. How do I prove myself after everything I've accomplished in life? And that's what position I was in, like, to prove myself. Again, it was hard with something I've never done before. So I got the opportunity to create the film, but I also needed to get a camera. I meant get a laptop. So when I did the laptop, I didn't have anything to edit except with good old iMovie. So I basically edit the entire film with iMovie and my camera, but I did everything because I couldn't afford to pay anyone to do anything. You know, so my lighting was very minimal, and I used a lot of natural lighting due to the fact that I couldn't afford lights, right? And had to be creative, which is great. The lack of resources actually leads to phenomenal creative, you know, drive. So I appreciate everything that it took to create the film. Yeah.
And she also did that. So I was not on as a producer for this process. So she literally did everything herself. So she directed it, she shot it, she edited it, she everything did, right? And so I came on late in the process where there was already like a rough cut, and I saw this and I was like, this person is a genius. You know, this is a really, really gifted artist, you know, and I could just like hear like, and all of you, I mean, it just was like, what was coming through in that like original cut was just so unbelievable. And I just was like, how can I help? You know, how can I like be a resource, you know? And so basically like I came on as just sort of like a, you know, a person to help support when she had been alone, you know, and like there was no money, there was no like, hey, do you want to be hired for this? It was just like, I believe in her and I believe in the project, and how can I help? And we'll just like go it for free together, you know. And I have had the privilege of being able to watch like, you know, her and the movie like flourish, you know, artistically, and then everyone, you know.
So modest, this one. So when he saw the film, he told me that he loved it, and he sent over this huge email. Huge, full of notes. Yeah. Read me down. full of notes. And it changed my life. Because what you put in the email, if I had the, okay, well, stop, I'm not looking at you. If I had the money, I would have paid money for the notes that he sent me, because I can't imagine a lot of people in his position offering me that help. Yeah. Because he could have easily been jealous, he could have easily been feeling like, well, before I give you something, I need this, you know, and he did this without me asking, and he left it at that. And I let these notes talk to me, and what resonated is what I took, and it changed the trajectory of the film beyond a doubt. It's like, it wouldn't have made it to Sundance had he not come into the picture. Yeah.
But also, like, none of those were things that were like, you must do this. It was all, you have to follow your own voice.
Sure.
These are just like my thoughts for you to bounce off your own voice. And so like the movie is 100% like through like her reflection on herself, you know?
Yeah, sounds like a very nice cooperative process. You mentioned it in the very beginning, Dee, that you wanted to make a documentary, and it was very important to you that it's a film, that it has this cinematic quality to it. And I was really wondering, where do you see the power or the potential of the moving image as a medium in telling these kind of stories that this film also represents?
Sometimes telling a story visually tells a story more than verbally. And because these women are so animated as far as their experiences and what makes them defensive or what makes them cringe or what makes them emotional, it was only my obligation to capture that. but I had to paint a picture for them to let them know what I was going for, right? And so I think moving forward, even, I mean, I dare say even in cinema, I think people have to challenge themselves, and shooting documentary has to be a process that feels more intimate, but without it maybe feeling so educational sometimes. Sometimes people learn more, at least my people, we learn more when we're stimulated, there's music involved, there's gotta be some type of humor, you know. That's how we communicate as Black people and gay people apparently, like, and everybody apparently, right? Because people are resonating with the style of the film. I'm not saying that everyone should do this, but I also think a documentary doesn't have to be so heavy to get your point across.
Yeah, and this one certainly wasn't. There were like a lot of very refreshing, fun moments in it, which were very nicely, we're working together with these heavy subjects as well that were talked about in the film. And I was wondering about your visual approach to the film. It seems like that you had quite a vision already before starting filming. Walk us through a bit. What was your approach visually to this material?
I love color, I do, but there's something obviously very striking and timeless about Black and white, whether it's in film or photography. There's an elegance to Black and white. There's a elevation to Black and white. It's like, it doesn't matter how grotesque or beautiful or innocent a subject is in Black and white, it just adds so much more visual value to me. And a lot of people are so afraid of Black and white because colors are beautiful, but there are colors in Black and white. There's emotion in Black and white. And what I wanted to do, because they're transgender, we've never experienced such a delicate visual with trans women. And I thought to myself, as a trans woman, I want to approach this with as much dignity as possible, but I don't want to take away from who they are, truly are, you know? And there was never a doubt or question that this needed to be in Black and white. And before I started to do the film, I was already shooting a lot of Black and white photos around the city. And so I was already in Black and white mode, and just the thought of shooting these beautiful women with no makeup, gorgeous skin, in Black and white. And that's scary. I think that's probably the most scariest thing in the whole film, is to just shoot without glam squad and da-da-da, but they didn't need it. So I think Black and white at the end of the day just represents truth and timelessness.
I'm very excited. I mean, obviously the film premiered at Sundance. What was the reception like? What was the general reception so far from the audience? How did the audience connect with the material?
Well, I'm gonna let them talk, but it started with the standing ovation. The entire Sundance experience started with the standing ovation. I didn't know how normal or rare that was, but it doesn't happen often, and that was it for me. Yeah. Well, how's it like for you?
It was very touching. A lot of people would see us out and said that that was their most favorite movie they saw all week, and it was educational and what we needed for the moment right now to start these uncomfortable conversations that need to be had. And that was like my favorite part, like just people coming up to us and thanking us for being a part of this movie and being vulnerable and sharing our truth. And they loved it. Like everyone was coming up to us when we were out at different parties, like, oh my God, that was my best movie all week.
People recognized you.
Yeah, they were like, oh my God, the Kokomo City girls. And we're like, yeah.
I think the most profound moment for me was like immediately after the screening, a Black woman comes up to me who's 4 months pregnant, and she says that the final scene in the movie really redefined the way that she will raise her child. And she told me that she immediately after the screening was going to call her husband and let her know that before they even consider any parenting tactics, that they would have to sit down as a couple and watch Kokomo City. And so for me, as a person who grew up in foster care, abandoned, you know, I think that that was a moment where the version of myself that felt abandoned by my mother felt like there was hope for another child, and that there was hope that no matter what that child becomes, that that child has a chance to be just loved and supported and won't have to grow up to just survive. And so to think that we welcomed them into a space with a narrative that my own mother may not be able to be receptive to, but there was a Black mother out there that was, is the power in storytelling, is the power in Kokomo City, because we're starting conversation and we're seeing real change happening in real time. So.
And that's the most beautiful end word we can have. So thank you so much.
Thank
you for
you.
being here. And I wish you all the best for tonight, for the premiere.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.